Joe Rogan signed a deal with Spotify for over $100 million, and he's going to be streaming exclusively on their platform. Sounds like a great deal. However, this guy over at Supercast thinks Joe Rogan got ripped off. So this is a very interesting article and argument. So I'm going to go through it. Joe Rogan got ripped off. How Spotify tricked him into giving up billions. Oil companies are famous for approaching helpless farmers and buying drilling rights for their properties for next to nothing. The farmers don't realize they are sitting on tens of millions of dollars of oil, so they accept a $50,000 one time payment. It feels like a huge win until they realize that they just lost out on tens of millions of dollars of oil riches. That's Joe Rogan right now. So he goes and gives three examples on how Rogan got ripped off. To the untrained eye, this looks pretty good for Rogan. His listeners can still access the podcast for free as long as they use Spotify. Spotify premium subscribers get the podcast without ads, but free users will have to listen to the ads, presumably sold by Spotify. In my last post, I estimated Rogan was making around $64 million a year. In contrast, the Spotify deal gets him 2 to 4 million what he was making before, and as a bonus, he doesn't have to worry about the business side. Not bad, right? Wrong. Here's why this is a bad deal for Rogan. He lost control over his audience. The magic of podcasting is that it's free, open, and decentralized, like email. When you have an audience, subscribers, you can reach them directly at any time without any middleman or algorithm. You own the relationship, and this is profoundly valuable. You can't be screwed over by an aggregator getting in your way. When you're a podcaster, subscribers are your currency. They are what make your podcast valuable. By doing this deal, Rogan gives up control over subscriber relationship. Any new audience he builds from here on out, he loses. His existing podcast feed will likely die as most people eventually unsubscribe due to inactivity. If he goes back to being independent and ditches Spotify in 3 years, he has lost all of his new subscribers during that time, and some of his original subscribers as well. It's like Disney licensing their Disney Plus content to Netflix. It might net a big one-time payout, but it completely erodes the business value that would otherwise accrue to them. And make no mistake, Joe Rogan is a business. As I said in my last post, were he to build the level of advertising and subscription revenue, I think he is capable of. His corporation would easily be valued at over $1 billion. Spotify gets Rogan's reoccurring revenue. Like the farmer, Rogan didn't realize he was sitting on oil. He didn't value it. To him, the only way to make money from his farm was by harvesting vegetables. Advertising. It's backbreaking labor in the sun doing ad sales is a pain. What he didn't realize was that just under his feet was a pool of oil so vast that it would immediately catapult him to billionaire status with minimal effort and build tens or maybe hundreds of millions of dollars of reoccurring revenue. Let's make something clear. Joe Rogan is the new Howard Stern. His audience is 10 to 12 times larger than Howard Stern's, and Sirius makes an estimated $290 million in revenue from selling subscriptions to Stern. Damn, they make that much? Yeah, I like this chart. Joe Rogan listeners, puny Howard Stern. Let's look at what Rogan's reoccurring revenue could have looked like. When Sirius did the deal with Stern, they took an all-or-nothing approach. You can only listen to Stern if you subscribe to Sirius. Full stop, zero access. This wouldn't make sense for Rogan. It's too extreme, and it would piss off his fans. Instead, a hybrid approach would make the most sense. Rogan could have kept selling ads in addition to offering an ad-free stream, as well as bonus episodes, extended content video stream for paying subscribers only. At just a 5% conversion rate, this is worth over $33 million in annual recurring revenue. That might not sound like a ton compared to a deal valued at $100 million a year, but when you add it to his advertising revenue, it gets him close to $100 million, fully independent of Spotify. Most importantly, Rogan would have been building value and reoccurring revenue in his own business. As I pointed out in my last post, if Rogan had added subscription, he would have owned a company that looked like the world's best SaaS business, crazy reoccurring revenue with low churn and insanely high margins, growing at 25 to 50% per year as podcasting's audience grows over time. This revenue is insanely valuable and should be built by him, not Spotify. Not everyone has their head in the sand. While deals like this get a lot of press, successful podcasters who understand the value in owning their relationship with their audience are making moves in this space. Case in point, earlier this month, Ben Thompson, I have no idea who that is, from Stretchery, and John Gruber, Daring Fireball, launched Dithering, a subscription-only podcast. Ben Thompson underscores the value of staying independent. Owning my own destiny as a publisher means avoiding aggregators and connecting directly with customers. Rogan's friend Sam Harris, who has sworn off advertising and focused on subscription since he started in 2014, just made a much more aggressive push into subscription. In 2019, he started cutting off most episodes halfway through and only letting paying subscribers hear full episodes. In 2017, Observer reported that Harris was getting about 1 million downloads per episode, so let's estimate that his 2017 audience was around 1 million listeners. If we do some rough napkin math and assume that his show grew along with global podcast listeners, which grew 54% since 2017, that would mean that he currently has about 1.54 million monthly listeners. Applying a 5% conversion rate with a price of $5 a month to this works out to be about $4.6 million in annual reoccurring revenue. Applying a 20% conversion rate, which I would expect him to get given his more aggressive push to subscription, works out to $18 million in annual reoccurring revenue. It's a lot of money, especially for Sam Harris. Looks like Ben Stiller. With an estimated 12 million monthly listeners, Rogan's reoccurring revenue potential is at least 8 to 12 times what Sam Harris has been able to achieve. Number 3, he is massively shrinking his audience and impact. Restricting his listeners to people who use Spotify will dramatically lower his addressable audience, and I have no doubt that Spotify will eventually gate his content to paid Spotify subscribers in some way. Extra episodes, video, ad-free, etc. Make no mistake, Spotify's endgame is to add Spotify subscribers. That's their North Star. For context, Howard Stern, who just before his Sirius deal was one of the most widely listened to radio personalities in the world, now he has an audience of less than 1 million per episode. When I tell most people my age, early 30s, that I love Howard Stern, I get a blank stare. Nobody knows who he is. Stern has lost his impact on culture in exchange for a big upfront payment. Let's be real. Stern and Rogan are already super rich. The difference between $50 million a year of profit and $100 million means zero to their day-to-day lifestyle. What I imagine does matter to them is the size of their audience and their impact, and both made choices that will limit that forever. Napkin math, let's compare the two paths Rogan could have gone down. Sign with Spotify, pros, don't need to sell ads, less risk, licensing deal, Joan retains creative freedom in future. Stay indie, pros, retain full control of audience relationship, largest possible audience, no cap on earning potential, retain creative freedom, and then they got cons, loses relationship with subscribers, no large upfront check, need to operate or run their own business. The numbers, Spotify contract, you get to 100 million, well, over 100 million. The numbers low, 50 million in ads. high 200 million. Subscription revenue 33 at $5 a month, 66 at 10. YouTube ad revenue low 27, high 68. Low 110, high 330. However you run the math, this was a coup for Spotify. I hope that the reported numbers are low, because I don't think even $100 million a year provides Rogan with enough upside to accommodate the trade-offs. Losing its relationship with its subscribers, building someone else's business, and a smaller audience and less impact. He's going to be just fine either way. I'm not shedding any tears for Joe, but as a business person, I can't help but shake my head at the lost potential. The world's largest podcasters are sitting on oil. There's a reason Spotify is writing these seemingly insane checks. They've done the geological surveys. They're trying to cut deals with as many hapless farmers as they can before they all catch on. Spotify will spend hundreds of millions to reap billions. Most people will look at Rogan and think he's a genius living the dream. I think he's a farmer who just got taken by Daniel E.K. or Eck. Well, that's the article. Let me know your thoughts in the comments.